Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Creepy cryptid encounters thread. Does not have to be Innawoods, but my story is. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. This is a fairly long story. I live in Wyoming. Won't give out any more location info. Take over Dad's old cabin, refurnish it, and go in a woods regularly. My whole family used to go camping together all the time, but we stopped as we got older, busy. Not me. I would always go out to clear my head or just for some fun. Been saving up a lot of vacation time money to have a few extra days off. Ask around. All my friends and GF are busy. Disappointed, but fuck it. We can do another one some other time. Back up my stuff and bring my German Shepherd Baxter. It was around fall, so it was really beautiful outside. Baxter's happy, I'm happy. Life is good. Get to my cabin. Haven't been for a few weeks, so I have to restock everything, but it's actually in pretty good shape. It should be. I spent a small fortune fixing it up. Spend the rest of the day setting up. By dark, I'm cooking dinner and watching TV. The X-Files, the Flukeman episode. I want to get the Halloween fall feel before going to bed. The next day, Baxter and I are out walking the trails. Recently, I had begun to walk over them and explore on my own. Dad always warned me not to stray too far, but that was when I was like 12. I'm a big boy now. We walk on and nothing is out of the ordinary. Birds chirping, sun shining. Walk for a bit, and Baxter starts getting anxious, which is weird. He's usually fine in the woods. Another 5 minutes and I find this old stone building I've never seen before. Like really old, could be the early 1900s era. Some of it's still standing, but I can't figure out what it was. Either an old stone house or some type of mill. It was all overgrown and the back collapsed. I decide the absolute smartest thing to do would be to check it out. Inside smells like really strong cat piss, also has some leaves and shit inside. Obvious signs of life are obvious. I'm smart enough to know not to hang around in someone's living room. Me and Baxter get the hell up out of there. Unsling my M1 Garand, you can never be too safe. I keep telling myself I'm just spooking myself. Every little crunch or snap off in the woods has me on high alert. Get back to the main trail when I hear a big snap, like someone snapping a limb off a tree. Only something very large could do that. I crouched and ready the rifle. Baxter gets down with me. We sit for a few minutes. Figure we can wait it out. Completely expecting a bear to come charging, but nothing. We get up and walk on. About 50 or so yards before the cabin, I hear it again. Don't crouch, but pull the ultimate dumb blonde in a horror movie. Is anybody out there? I'm armed, so don't be fucking around. In my defense, I didn't want to shoot some kids or a drunk hillbilly. But yeah, that was some Scooby-Doo tier shit, I know. Nothing. Double time it back to the cabin. Baxter is inside, sleeping. But I'm on the porch eating and watching. Nothing happens for the night and for the next day. Laugh at myself. More than likely was just a bear. Go shooting, hiking, fishing, and enjoying myself. Come back from walking Baxter and see a blood smear on the side of my cabin. Somebody tossed a goddamn squirrel at my house. Looked like it had been manhandled before breaking its spine off of my shutters. Assume there's some axe murderer stalking me. Stop going out on hikes and never leave my cabin. I don't want to run either. This place is mine and I'm not leaving early. The next day it rains. Stay inside and watch TV or read books. Realize I'm an idiot as I only brought scary horror movies, books, and murder mysteries to creep myself out. Walk by the windows. Always feel like I'm being watched, but that's probably just nerves. Have a gun in every room. The next day the rain clears. I go outside because I forgot some folding lawn chairs, but whatever, they'll dry. All broken, every one of them. They were only like 15 to 20 yards away from my house. For future reference, this is when the shit starts hitting the fan. I'm definitely being stalked. I've been hunting enough before to know that. And whatever it is gave its last shit a while ago, and I was late for the show, which is bad. But I've got my cabin, plus my Jeep, plus a surplus of firearms. Thank you, based Wyoming. Which is good. If I had known how crazy it was going to get, I honestly wouldn't have stayed. We've had bears and shit before, and usually if you stand your ground and shoot at them, they leave you alone. Sitting inside reading when I hear another thud, this one just to the right of my front door. I don't want to open the door. Open the curtains, see a bloody possum still alive, somewhat twitching. Nope. Go upstairs to my granddad's war chest and pull out Samuel Goliath. His M14 he smuggled back. Load that sucker up, my .44 Ruger on my hip. I already said every room was armed, but that was just like a 9mm per room. Pack up everything else back in my backpack. I was still thinking it was some maniac killer, and I didn't want to have guns everywhere if he got inside. Have all my guns and supplies in bags in the living room in case I need to bug out. The next morning, the possum was still there, now dead. Toss it back into the woods and yell something to the likes, "Why don't you come out now in the daylight, you fucking pansy?" Of course, nothing. Since I'm feeling brave, I walked the tree line. Whatever was out there broke some more of my shit. Lampposts that haven't worked in years, another chair, my fire pit. Fear is slowly being replaced with rage. Get Baxter, decide to test my balls in the water. Walk a little while into the trees. I'm a dumbass, I know. I'm officially the fat guy in the slasher movie that hears a scream and says, "I'll go check it out by myself in the dark." We walk for a bit. The further we go, the lower Baxter gets, and the more he whines. Don't need Caesar Millen to tell me he's scared of being in someone's territory. In the distance, make out a familiar shape. The stone building from before. We've gone too far this time, Scoob, old buddy, old pal. See a tall gray chimney in the back that I didn't notice before? Shit, that chimney just moved. That's no chimney, and it's not Yogi Bear. Can't make out what it is, but it's pretty tall and slender and gray. Raise M14, yell, "Hey!" It sways slightly, then does this awkward forward leap and dash to the side into the bushes. Get possessed by Tom Cruise from Born on the 4th of July. Fire off rounds like a madman. I think I hit it. I definitely heard a groan screech. I know I'm ripping off that Goat Man story where he says it sounds like a cat talking, but that is the best way I can describe it. Don't know if I hit it. It could have been a battle cry for all I know. Fast walk back to the cabin. I don't want to run, especially if I'm being hunted. Make it home in one piece. Pack everything. I'm leaving tomorrow. I would tonight, but I'm not driving around in the dark. Not even the Alamo is worth this shit. At the very least, I'm coming back with friends. Have everything. Repacking to keep myself busy when I hear Baxter growl. Not deep angry growl like when the mailman comes to your house. Deep back of his throat growl. Take out my .44 and walk slowly to the kitchen. Nothing, no monster, but Baxter is low and snarling to the window over the sink. There's condensation on it, but in one spot like something was breathing on it. And just to make sure my therapy lessons are worthwhile, a handprint on the glass. Stare at it for a few seconds. Almost start laughing at how ridiculous this is. The print was too long to be human. Take a pen and put it in at the point where your finger meets your hand and see how long it is. Like that long. Rifle over my shoulder, revolver on my hip. I walk from room to room, double and triple checking to make sure I have everything. I haven't seen the place this empty since I inherited it. I'm really just keeping busy. If I sit for too long, I'll go stir crazy, and I'd since given up on ever sleeping again. Had Baxter on a leash to keep him close, but soon took it off. The poor guy wouldn't leave my side. And I hear a thud, again. Then another, and another. Check the front, dead raccoon. Disemboweled, check the back, rock. He ran out of animals. Check the front, deer leg. He found another animal. Then I remembered we had these searchlights. I had forgotten that you could turn on from the den. We used to play volleyball well into the night when we were little, so Dad put them in. I juggled with the idea. I didn't know if it would scare him off or piss him off. Plus, I didn't really want to get a good look at whatever it was. That's when I heard another thump. But this was different. It was going in a horizontal pattern along the outside of the walls. It was smacking the sides of my house. My legs were shaking, and I'm surprised, proud, I didn't piss myself. Granddad used to tell me stories of Vietnam, how you know the enemies are there, but you grip your rifle to the point your knuckles hurt and you wait. But how the waiting is the worst part of all. Fuck it. I turn on the floodlights and walk to each window. And that's when I finally saw this big ugly bastard. I'm not green texting anymore because I'll run out of room and I want to do this justice. so I'm going from room to room, and I'm not seeing anything. I'm getting more and more relieved, thinking I scared it off. I went to the window right under where the lights were and I saw it. Well, actually, I saw the dead deer first next to the tree line, all bloody and torn up to all hell. But I then see this thing. Now, I've read through a lot of creepypastas and /x/threads, watched a lot of those hunting Bigfoot and goatmen shows, and they all have a lot of similarities. 7 to 8 feet tall, red eyes, smelled blood in the air, face like a gorilla and build like a brick shithouse. And I can get why people who study them think of them as some missing link to evolution. Because yeah, they do look like some long-lost gorilla relative. But whatever in the hell this thing was, did not. It was tall. Not really tall, but I'd say around 6'3", and slender, long arms, those long fingers that will molest my dreams for years to come. But its face wasn't like an ape. It was more like a baboon, long and droopy. When I googled pic-related, it gave me chills to see it again. It wasn't colorful, but like a black-reddish color that matched his fur, which was surprisingly sleek. His eyes were yellow, probably the only relatable thing to the other cryptids, and the light surprised it, like when you turn on a light and wake someone up. It then glanced at me, and we had a Clint Eastwood stare down before it snarled back its lips, showing the yellow baboon-like fangs. It screeched like a bat and did that same side-to-side leap back into the woods. I closed the curtain, checked the lock, and curled up with my rifle until morning. When it came, I made one trip with all my things and drove like a madman back to town. And that's pretty much it. My friends and I went back a month later. Some of the shutters were broken off, and there were some scratches, but aside from that, it was fine. Last one. Thanks for sticking around if you did. I've been camping since then, but only with a large group, no tents, and not that deep into the woods. I told my friends and family everything. They all more or less believe me. I'm not the only one with a weird hunting story, though I'm sure mine is worthy of some sort of prize. I told my GF's dad, who's an avid hunter, and he just shrugged and matter-of-factly said, "Yeah, shit happens if you go out deep enough," and then in the most deadpan serious tone, "Those woods aren't ours, not all of them at least." I've been looking into cryptozoology and into those goatman threads, and I have yet to read about anything like what I saw. I don't know if I found some inbred Bigfoot or found some kind of new thing that nobody knows about. I've been meaning to ask around to a lot of the local Native Americans. They of all people would probably have a legend of it. It still bothers me how we spent so much time out there as children and never saw anything quite like that. Like it could have been watching us the whole time. I asked my dad and he just said the same thing as my GF's dad. I still have yet to sell the cabin. Probably never will. But whatever. For all that's it's worth, it can be that thing's home now.
Here is one of mine. Driving with family members. Uncle is driving. I'm in the back seat with my cousin doing something, not paying attention. Driving down a long dirt road that goes out to a few houses. Driving pretty fast on dirt road. We hit something. Uncle freaks out. Impact makes the car slide a little. Car stops. I thought there was a rock from a stone wall in the road. My cousin says, "No, we hit a deer." Uncle gets out of the car and looks at the front bumper. It is dented pretty bad, but low to the ground, not on the hood like a deer. He thinks we hit a bear or a large dog. He is freaking out and tells us to stay in the car when we open the doors. It had just got dark out. It was a very dark night, I realized. Him and my dad are talking. They say the thing we hit was running extremely fast. Was big like a bear, but lean, like a large cat. Only with a head like a bald bear. They said it looked like you could see its skull. He turns the car around and shines the high beams into the marshy tall grass on either side of the road. Pulls up to where we hit it, and there are marks on the road like claw marks. As we sit looking at the road, we smell something like rotten clams, smelly dog, and high tide. We hear a low rumble and think it's a boat in the distance. It's a growl. We drive to the house we were going to and told the people there. They are freaked out and say that some animal has been going through garbage cans and killing people's dogs that lived outside. As we shined our headlights on the sides of the road, we pointed out a mound of fur sticking out of the grass. It was dark brown and looked wet. My dad and uncle freak out if me and my cousin talk about this. My cousin later said that he saw the animal before we hit it, and it didn't really look like a deer, but he was young when it happened. That's the story, Rhode Island. The car was fucked up, and I wasn't really scared because I never saw the thing, but I believe it, because my uncle and dad are pretty straight-up guys.
I've lived in Innawoods for the past 10 years. I can post some of my experiences if anybody is still lurking. Live in Nova Scotia, Canada. Move Innawoods when I was about 9. Great farm area. Chickens, pheasants, goats, dog, cat. Moved an hour away from my friends. Pumped when I can have a sleepover. Partay.jpg. 3 friends over, plus one's brother. Father gets called to work. Mother has to drive him to the airport 4 hours away. Friend's brother is 15, old enough to watch us, about 10 at night, watching movies, playing hide and seek, kid stuff, hiding under my bed, tee-hee. Movement from my door, pitch black, so I can't see a thing. Anon? Friend, let's call him Ben, called. It wasn't it, so I told him I was under my bed. He crawled under with me. Anon, your neighbor is outside, looking in the window. Was a little creeped out, but hold up. I live an hour away from civilization. Crawl out from under my bed and look out my bedroom window. 2nd floor, with a clear view of my driveway. No cars, no people that I could see. Go back in hiding? Tell Ben that he's crazy. Really, Anon, I saw somebody. Continues playing. Game ends later into the night. No boogeyman. Midnight. Watching scary movies because we could. Ben's older brother, we'll call him Steven, is sitting with me in a chair, scratching at the window next to us, but it was windy, so we assumed it was a tree branch. Slam. 4 kids and 1 teenager simultaneously shit bricks. Open curtain, large humanish creature be lurking several feet away. 911, please hold. Creature be patrolling for another few minutes before it goes into the woods. 45 minutes later, lazy-ass pigs show up. Tell the police what happened. They look for footprints and evidence of something. Nothing.jpg. Mother shows up about an hour into the investigation. Everything seems normal. Pigs leave. Gets yelled at by mother for calling the coppers because father's weed plants growing out back. Never allowed to have another sleepover. Maybe a year or so later. Either way, still a snot-nosed little brat. Time to go feed the goat. The thing was such a bro. Noticed something smelled weird, like the inside of a rotten ass. Opened the barn door and the goat came out as usual. Stuck head in the barn, nothing there. Went to put the goat in his pen. The stench filled my nostrils. The hell were you into, goat? Left him to his business. Couldn't take his stink. Went about day as usual. Nothing interesting happened. Go to his pen a while later. The goat is dead. Stomach ripped out. Insides all over the ground. Flies in his eyes. Shit, son. Didn't know how to react. Was caught between wanting to cry and vomit. Told father. He came to investigate. Chunks of the goat were now missing. Father shits bricks. Dug a hole. Stuck him in. And was never spoken about again. I forget a lot of details due to this being so long ago. So this was very short and vague. There's no way it could have been a coyote. The slit through his stomach was too straight. The forest dwellers seemed to be the best culprit. 3 years ago, home alone, as I'm a big kid now, playing Minecraft, dead to the world outside. Here's shit going on outside. Whatever. I live in the middle of nowhere. I'm used to wild animals lurking in my yard. Thud. Against the wall. What was that? The fuck was that? At least I'm safe inside my mind.jpg. Continue playing Minecraft. Black Lab sitting in the chair with me. Becomes alert, then farts. He'll protect me from the evils outside. Thud, thud, thud. Something sounded like it was being whipped against the side of the house. My cat was outside. Run to the door and scoop him up from outside, bringing him into the safe haven of my home. Couple more thuds periodically over a couple hours, then stops. Get up in the morning to go to school. Chicken with its neck broken laying next to the side of the house. Blood smears on the paint. Guess I know what'll be for supper.
Not really Innawoods, but I think it compares to the stories in this thread. Also, I'm too lazy to greentext, sorry. I live in Germany, southern Bavaria, rather rural, but no bigger woods to be found around, nowhere to get lost or anything. After my A-levels, I had to work to get some money for university. I had some shitty jobs, but in the end, I got to work as a night porter in a little hotel. One of the 20 oldest breweries in Germany, by the way, a pretty nice place, actually. It was nice. I got good money and only had few things to do. Open the doors for guests that arrived late because it was a rule to completely shut down the whole area after 22 o'clock. Preparing the dining room, patrolling the area, which was a bit creepy, especially the brewery and the outer parts, but not too bad, etc. Worked there for 4 weeks at all, straightforward. 1.5 week in Wednesday, 1:30 in the night. I had the dining room ready, had my first patrol through, so I was at the counter chilling and reading when the door rang. I was a bit confused because this was the first time that a guest arrived that late. I had only to open the door, take his name and show him his room. The actual day porter would take his money and clarify everything. He was a pretty old guy, between 65 and 70 at the very least. Rugged up clothes, and he was pretty shook up, sweating and all. But I saw that he had a shit ton of money with him when he showed me his pass, so I figured it was okay. He only had a small suitcase and a Hessian bag with him. I figured that he was going to sleep right off the bat, tired and fucked up as he looked. But he took the key and sat down on a table, all his stuff with him, and ordered a beer. He paid at the bar and drank it, faster than I could have, even in my top times, and ordered a second. I was pretty weirded out now, and I was pissed too. With him being there, I had to stay in the same room, and I had to bring him his stuff, instead of reading some more. Well, so I had to stay there. Make him food, which he also paid at the bar, nothing much. Just some bread, cheese, and sausage, the only thing we served during the night. He grew weirder and weirder. Even at 2:30, he still wouldn't go to bed. Staying at the table, always watching the windows, his food still on the table and the 4th beer down. I went as far as to ask him if he wanted me to show him his room because he looked ill, and asked him if he wanted tea or some medicine. At that point, he stared at me as if he just realized that I was here right now after I catered to him for more than an hour. While switching between looking at me and the window, he told me that he slept the whole day on the train, so he wasn't tired. A lie, obviously. He arrived by car yet again. A shitty old and roughed up car despite the amount of money he had on himself. At this point, I was seriously concerned. We are a rural area and don't have problems with the mafia or anything, but there have been occurrences. This guy, frightened, rugged up, but with all that money, always watching the windows, looked just like the prime example of someone who was being hunted. And if there was one thing that I didn't want at that point, it would be problems with the mafia or anything similar. This was, I guess, when the shit really started. While he told me that, we suddenly heard a huge crash, like seriously huge, coming from the brewery building. Nothing should have been able to crush there. The machines were all out all night and the building was half built in the woods, so no cars or anything other than the big truck that brought the barrels away once a day. It sounded like one of the pyramids has been crushed. Solid 2. 3 minutes of crazy loudness, afterwards silence. I was pissed, obviously, a weird guy in the front. Maybe hunted by the mafia and a shit ton of problems in the future if the sound was what I thought. Well, okay, the old guy had at this point a look on him that made me think that he was just a pinch away from pissing himself. He was shaking and grabbing the bag he had with him like his life depended on it. Either way, I had to go back to the brewery and watch what was going on. I phoned the boss to tell him that we had a customer and something going on in the brewery because I didn't know if I could leave the customer alone. While I tried to catch the chef, the guy asked me what was going on and told me that he would go with me to check it out. Very weird considering how freaked out he already looked. This was the best possibility I had though, so I took him with me. He clasped rather closely to me and he stank. Hell, it was a disgusting stench. I've never smelled a human smelling that much of sweat, and I figured that he eventually pissed himself either way. Great. Evening was getting better and better. We arrived at the back door and I looked out, over the big yard, right over to the brewery with the pyramids in front, 5 intact. 1 actually broken down, the barrels lying everywhere. Luckily the stench of sweat faded a bit right now simply because everything smelled like beer. That was a good point. At the very least I consider it good right now, no matter how bad it was. The bad thing, though, was the feeling. I know that I'm way too easily spooked, but I never felt a thing like this. I was close to pissing myself without having seen anything. It wasn't a really weird situation up to now, but I still felt like I was a second away from dying. No idea how to describe it. I was in a cold sweat, and I think the old guy felt the same. He was whimpering behind me and clasped the doorframe. Then I could have sworn I saw someone jumping away, right over the wall.
This is going to make me sound like a nut job, but I'm absolutely convinced I've seen a panther around where I live in West Virginia. Was stalking the tree line about 100 yards from the main highway. Everybody else thinks I was seeing shit, but I know what I saw was too spooky.
Some nutjob about a mile from where I lived in the cornfields of Indiana had at one time a bunch of exotic animals. Wolves, a pair of panthers, emus, camels, a group of bison, some bobcats. Just outrageous shit. One day he unlocked all the gates after his kids went to school and the wife went to work. Then he went into the bison enclosure and taunted the animal until he was trampled and gored to death. The animals, of course, escaped. They accounted for only about 4 of the original 20-some animals. The rest of that year outside recess was canceled at the grade school, which was only 2 miles from the guy's property.
Lowell, awesome.
Ever see the Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead? The originals, not the remakes. When the hunters were in straight lines, about an arm's length from each other, walking across fields with rifles, putting them down. That's what it looked like for 4 days. School was canceled. Everyone kept kids and animals not wanting to be killed indoors, and people formed lines to look for the animals, with groups of trackers looking for spoor and footprints. But the problem was, the guy lived on a road that formed a county line, so there were no police at all, because each county said there was no proof the animals were still in their county. The state police weren't even there. It was really weird. Now this has been about 20 years ago now, I guess, so I would imagine they are dead. But there is a lot of area in this part of Indiana that is still pure wilderness, and now and then you hear about wolf and cat sightings. No wild camels, though. No one ever reports that or claimed to have found the remains.
Haha, nice. Did you ever meet the dude?
A few times he seemed okay whenever I saw him. His wife was normal, and his son still goes bow hunting with my brother and I. But we don't generally bring it up out of deference to him and avoid, "Hey, remember how your dad went bananas and offed himself?" So looking back, he is a nut job. But at the time I knew him, he seemed sane. My grandpa said, though, the guy in retrospect was odd, since he would buy a pony from an Amish fellow, have it slaughtered and make jerky out of it, and then take it to basketball games at the high school. Hindsight being 20/20, though, I guess. Also, I think a form of Sasquatch exists in this part of Indiana. I've never encountered one, but I have second-hand accounts of them.
Well, panthers, cougars, and mountain lions are all the same thing. The only difference is that sometimes panthers have darker fur. Regardless, it's highly possible you've been around them in West Virginia and Ohio. It's not especially likely that you'd be close to them in the wild, but it's certainly possible. They're predatory cats, so they're about as good as it gets in regards to stealthy movement and stalking their prey, or just interesting creatures for that matter.
We've heard and seen mountain lions in West Virginia a lot lately, more than we used to. Cabell County specifically. Animal control refuses to investigate the reports, though, unless it actually comes into someone's yard and eats someone's kid or pet, or you have video evidence of it. When they do find something and manage to capture it, they usually just release it back into the wild, far away from where it was before. I remember a few years ago they released some kind of cat near my stepfather's house in Lenoir, West Virginia. It killed at least 2 of his neighbor's pets and tried to get into the barn to get the horses, but it wasn't able to. Luckily, just tore the shit out of the door. No idea what happened to it, though. It just stopped showing up. Probably got shot. What I'm getting at is that it's definitely possible you saw a panther, mountain lion, or some other kind of large wild cat.
There's a growing population of escaped big cats in the UK from the black market or something. I've seen one, I think, and my parents saw one when they were walking my dad's dog before I was born. Both panthers in the same area. Escaped animals do better than people think. That's a zoo's second fear when animals escape, is them establishing an indigenous population. This also, in my mind, lends weight to JO's creature being some kind of escapee. There's a secretive black market for genetic experiments. Now we kind of understand genes and what they do. This I've also seen, but closer up, I was at some rich guy's house doing IT work, and he was really rich. He'd give free shit to me, like theatre tickets or furniture he didn't want. One day, he gets this funny, mischievous look in his eye. He asks if I want to see his pets, so I go through to see. He's got this half-cow, half-horse thing with a horn that he says is a unicorn. Then there's an adult elephant the size of a dog. He had other stuff too, like a squid that emitted light patterns in a weird way. I've heard of squids changing colour, but this guy was like a disco. Forgive my ramblings. I find it difficult to order my thoughts.
Had a creepy experience when I was younger. I was camping in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, just south of the Tennessee-Georgia border. I was about 13 or 14 at the time. I had to get up to piss in the middle of the night. There was a creek about 50 yards from where we were camping that was designated the pee spot. I get to the creek and am already kind of creeped out, so I decide to do my business and get back to the tent. As I'm pissing, I see movement out of the corner of my eye. What I thought to be a deer is drinking water in the creek. I kind of laugh to myself thinking that the deer is drinking my piss. I zip up my pants and start to back away from the creek when the deer looks up at me, stands up on its back legs, and fucking growls at me. I turn and run and jump into my parents' tents and wake them up. I tell them what happened and they just laugh and tell me I was dreaming or some bullshit. I still have nightmares about that thing.
I live in Brazil, have a beach house in a gated community. It's in Mangaratiba, a really small old city with docks, old ships and all that, like straight from a pirate movie. Absolutely surrounded by native rainforest, untouched. Google Earth Mangaratiba so you can see how big the rainforest area is. House is in a gated community with a private beach. Only access is one road that goes through security clearance area, since mansions are in the middle of nowhere. A couple years ago, I was walking with my cousin and little sister down a path that follows the beach. The path is really thin, like a small sidewalk, and at one point gets on my porch directly. We were 20 meters or so away from the porch. It was almost dark already, but since it's a gated community, it's safe to walk around at night. We were biking around, etc., until my little sis noticed something on the sand, a couple meters from us. Looking on, it's a doggy. Now, since it's safe and all in here, nobody has walls in their yards. We often see family dogs escape, but they're all friendly. They have a strict policy on potentially harmful dogs. I look at the sand. It's dark because the doggy is lying under a tree. I get down on my knee and start the usual, "Come here, boy, are you lost?" routine. Suddenly, my whole life doesn't make sense anymore. The thing was not a doggy. It gets up from the shadow. The thing is easily as big as a Great Dane, with the body mass of a fucking pit bull. I freeze. My cousin and sis freeze. Everything stops for a second. It goes one step forward. The paw was as big as my hand. Grab sis, forget bikes, yell for cousin to run. Run until we're inside the house, upstairs, yelling for my father to grab his gun and go outside. They didn't find anything. We called security because when I described it, my father thought it was a jaguar, rainforest, remember? But I am 100% sure it wasn't spotted. Native Maid talks about shapeshifters.
Be a monster in the woods. See human. Looks too skinny. Better feed it. Tries to make it a delicious wall-tenderized squirrel dish. Human rejects. Poor human. It must need bigger food. Tries to feed it slightly tenderized possum snack. Human rejects. Sees human sitting on strange lawn chair creatures. Maybe that is what it likes to eat. Tenderizes chair creatures. Surely human will be pleased with this. Human fucking shoots me. Fine if human wants to be this way. I'll tenderize it. Goes to human's house. Stops to watch human through the window. Aw, human is so cute. Feels bad about wanting to tenderize human. Tenderizes a raccoon and a deer instead to make up for it. Human will definitely like this. Crawls around on house because what are doors? Hey human, hey, knock knock human. Did you like my snack gifts, human? Hey, human does not seem to like my snack gifts. Human seems upset. Nothing I do for human is good enough, sad monster.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.